Hello, everyone, and welcome to The No Show. I'll be your host, Nathan Orenstein, and today I'm going to be doing an unscripted, unedited review slash ramble of Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Now, truth be told, I had originally planned to do a full scripted and edited video, like a normal review for this thing, but I didn't feel like I could because I struggled so badly to stay awake during the second half of this movie. Now, I will say I was tired going into this, so part of that's on me, but this movie just did not hold my attention whatsoever. Hardly stayed awake through the second half. Didn't feel like I could give a full quote-unquote review. So here we are. But let's talk about the plot first. So it starts out, there's this dad and this pregnant mom with their probably 8-year-old, maybe 10-year-old, 8-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son living in Egypt. The dad's like a news reporter out there. Daughter gets abducted. Her name's Katie. That'll be important later. Katie gets abducted, playing in the yard. They never find her. They move back to America. 8 years later, Katie's found in a sarcophagus, wrapped up like a mummy. She looks horrible, she's like, her skin's pretty much gray. She hardly looks human, but she's alive. And so they go to Egypt, pick her up, bring her home. Don't do any sort of doctor or therapy or anything like that. They just bring her home, and inevitably weird stuff starts happening, and boom, we've got a horror movie. So let me just right off the bat say I am not very familiar with the Mummy franchise. I know this is like a nearly century-old franchise. They've done so many iterations of it. I actually have seen the Tom Cruise one, which I think is the most recent one from probably a decade ago now. And it wasn't very good. Pretty action heavy. I know the Brendan Fraser version is really popular. That one, to my understanding, is also like action adventure. But this is supposed to be like a full-blown horror movie. I shouldn't say supposed to be. This is a full-blown horror movie. Feels like a total reinvention. I don't know if you're a fan of the Mummy franchise, if there's any sort of tie-in here. I think the tie-in is that there is a mummy, because I'm pretty sure the Mummy franchise kind of popularized mummies as a horror image, so not a ton of lore there. Anyway, I'm getting out of my depth. So I'm not a Mummy fan. Lee Cronin, I will say, I would consider myself a fan of Lee Cronin. He directed the Evil Dead Rise, Evil Dead reboot a few years ago. If you remember my video, that was in my top 10 of that year. Absolutely love that movie. Ton of fun. The Evil Dead is a very fun franchise, and Lee Cronin has a very distinct visual style, over the top, just kind of batshit insane style, which in a movie like The Evil Dead, that works really well. Now we're in The Mummy, which isn't so much that almost comedy-leaning type of film. This is like a horror movie, a family drama horror movie, for what it's worth. Very serious, and I will say his style is the best part of this movie. If you're going to plaster your name... By the way, Lee Cronin is not a household name. I know him because this is kind of what I do, but I don't think most normal movie fans know who Lee Cronin is, so it's kind of funny and weird to put his name right there in the title of the movie. But anyway, I think the visual style and the editing of this film are at least interesting enough so that this movie doesn't just totally sink under its weight of genericness and 2+ hour runtime. There is a little bit there, and he is someone who kind of pushes the bounds. There are some gross moments here. People are calling this like the grossest movie ever. No, it's not. But there are some moments there that kind of make you squirm, and I think he's good at that kind of thing. Anyway, let's get back to the rest of the movie. That's like my one positive you're going to hear, is I think Lee Cronin, from a visual standpoint, from an editing standpoint, does a pretty solid job. Now, all right, I mentioned how long this movie is. So if we're talking editing purely in terms of cutting the movie together, there is so much here that probably could have been cut out. There are long stretches where it's just oh, Katie's at home in bed. You know, she's like catatonic, but then something weird will happen because she's basically a mummy in a horror movie. And then more boring, more boring. Oh, something weird will happen again. You know, it's so uninteresting, and it feels like the movie's not going anywhere. The bits in between are pretty much the dad, who I did not like the dad character at all. I didn't like the actor. It's the guy from Midsummer. You know, the boyfriend everyone's supposed to hate in Midsummer. It's that guy. I don't like him here either. But anyway, there's a detective in Egypt looking into what happened to Katie, and the dad's looking into it back in America. And the plot line for the film, I'm pretty sure, is what happened to Katie. You know, it sets it up like a mystery. And the mystery here is not captivating at all. What happened to Katie? She got turned into a mummy. That's all you really need to know. Like, the why isn't that important, even though the film tries to tell you it's important, and by the time where you get to the why, it's kind of like, oh, I kind of thought that was implied, sort of thing. I won't get into spoilers, but the mystery element is not worth it. The characters looking into it are not interesting. And as the film progresses, so the mystery at the beginning is sort of kind of interesting because, like, you're just setting up this mystery. She was abducted and now she's back after 8 years. Yeah, there is some intrigue there. But as you learn more and more about what's going on, and you start see Katie do more and more weird things, the movie actually becomes less interesting because it starts to feel more and more generic. Like, by the time we get to the third act and the climax, it feels like you're watching any other sort of possession movie. It's just not that interesting. Like, it's like a loud finale. You know, there's a lot going on. Pretty standard horror stuff. Possession, ghost, you know, supernatural stuff happening. And there's a lot of it, but it's not interesting, and it doesn't feel unique in any way. Like I said, Lee Cronin's visual style is sort of kind of the only thing setting this thing apart. Other than that, this thing is so generic and so uninteresting. And after 2+ hours, I think there are very few horror movies that should be over 2 hours. This was certainly not one of them. It just felt like the payoff was so just uninteresting. Again, I don't know. That's kind of the key thing here. There's not anything that sets this movie apart that I could really recommend it to anyone. I don't think it's a very good possession movie. The mummy stuff, like the connection to like Egypt and mummies in general and just that culture, it's not that interesting. I don't think it really ties into the Mummy franchise as a whole, so I'm not even really going to recommend this to like Mummy franchise fans. And I don't know. I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't think any of it was that interesting. And if you want a visually interesting Lee Cronin movie, just go watch Evil Dead Rise. Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. It feels like it's doing the bare minimum. I almost wish it was worse because that would at least be more fun to talk about. But for what it's worth, this is just pretty mediocre. I was prepared to just give this like a right down the middle review. Like, it's fine, whatever. It's a harmless film, but like it just keeps going. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, I'm pretty sure. And that's ridiculous. This could have been 90 minutes. And I don't know. Whatever. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. I'm just going to stop right there. If you like the review, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And if you've seen Lee Cronin's The Mummy, not just The Mummy, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, then feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.